Jake's POV. We were in a burned-down building, made of stone and charred wood. Twisted metal poles were scattered about, half melted from whatever spells or fire destroyed the place. As soon as we reappeared, the others flew over and encircled us, holding planks and scraps of leather with runes on them. "Bring the sedative," the captain ordered, looking to Nine, who flew away, then came back a minute or so later dragging a wooden bowl, with a pink liquid sloshing around inside, across the ground with his beak with great effort. "Want some help?" I asked. "Yes, please," he said, panting and wheezing. Lieutenant Datahu and 14 tied up the prisoners, and I carried the bowl for 9. "Drink it," the captain ordered them. "You think I'd drink a sedative? Let you scratch around inside my soul? You drink it," the sergeant said, turning his head away and ruffling his feathers. Captain Giguales was cold, ice cold. He didn't react, didn't shout or scream, didn't even think twice about it. He just turned to the subordinate and made a simple declaration. "We only need one of you to drink this, by force or otherwise. The other is useless." His voice was even, sterile of tone, hatred, or anything that might give away what he was thinking. "I do not keep useless things alive." The captain looked at me, then the bowl I was holding, and motioned with his head for me to set it down in front of them. The subordinate looked at the sloshing, gloopy pink stuff in the bowl, to me, then to his rebellious sergeant, and finally to the captain. Quietly, he lowered his head and began to drink. "Skiddler," the sergeant spat. "Lorik, kill him," Captain Giguales said. Lorik glanced over, surprised, then fluttered next to the captive. "Wait, what?" I asked, stunned. "You don't," the sergeant started to say, but was cut off. "Something you need to know about Nume. They look like a cross between blue macaws and people. They have vaguely human shapes, but with feather, wings instead of arms. And most importantly for what happened next, large talons on their bird-like feet. Well, large for their bodies, I suppose. Whether Suma or any other are perching on my shoulder, the worst the claws do is poke me or break the skin. But to another Nume. Lorik placed the 3 large talons to the sergeant's feathered neck, and pressed down for blood to trickle. All right! Indra's eyes. I'll drink it." The sergeant leaned his head down and began to drink. "Skiddler," Lorik said, mocking him. "Enough, Lorik. At ease," the captain said. Lorik spread his wings and flew back to the twisted metal perch he'd been resting on earlier next to Suma. They were a fair distance away, but I could faintly hear them. Suma asked if Lorik would have actually done it, and Lorik just nodded his head. Through our connection, I could feel Suma's discomfort and fear. Not of Lorik, not exactly, but something I couldn't quite place. Turning my attention back to the prisoners, I noticed the bowl was nearly emptied, not that it was very full to begin with. "Now what, Captain?" I asked, and kneeled down next to him, half sitting on my own leg. "When the sedative takes effect, it will last several hours. Enough time to perform a memory delve and find information about Valundra." The captain turned his head to me, looking up. "Sentinel, you and Lorik will go into their minds during the delve, while myself and Lieutenant Datahu cast a spell on you both." My eye crooked. "Me? Why?" "We need someone mentally strong enough to pry out the information from their minds. Yourself and Lorik are our best choices," he said. "I get Lorik, but seriously? Me?" "You are mentally strong enough. Your own master couldn't even force you under her command with the right of dominance." You know?" Suma asked, sounding as shocked as I probably looked. "You two do not hide it particularly well," Lieutenant Datahu remarked. "It is easily the most well-known secret on base. Plus, you didn't go insane when you lost your hand, so that's something," Nine added, perched a few meters away on a burned-up wooden beam. "There is also the matter of your soul," the captain added, ignoring the others. "What do you mean?" I asked. You have had the portion of another soul inside of you for as long as we have known one another. Yet not once have you shown any symptoms one might expect from that. Except for when you would occasionally hallucinate, but that has not happened in a while. Any normal Nume not skilled in soul magic would have lost their minds, or had their personality changed so dramatically that they would effectively be a different mind altogether. But you cannot even use soul magic, and still you have not changed in the slightest, Lieutenant Datu added. Exactly, Lieutenant. Which is why you, Sentinel, will be the one to perform the delve. Thank you, Captain, I said, and agreed to do the delve. It was another hour before the sedative took effect, and the Nume were unconscious. We untied the Nume and moved the runes away. Then the Captain and Lieutenant began the spell. Lorik and I laid next to the prisoners, as a magic circle formed around us, and a second under our heads, mine obviously being much larger than his. Lorik went into the sergeant, and I went into the subordinate. As the spell began, my mind felt foggy, like after just waking up from sleep. Nothing felt real, but distorted and stretched, like pulled taffy. Images passed in my mind, warped memories. Suddenly my whole body was underwater, or that's what it felt like. Everything went cold, fluid, and a little unreal. This was different from when I looked through Zachariah's or Dage's memories, but I could think clearly enough and knew why I was here. Volundra, I said, focusing on information I wanted. The images slowed down and took shape, became more solid, more real. Unfortunately, the first thing I saw was a dead Nume. Lichtenberg marks etched all over her body, and smoke rising from different feathers, some of which were still smouldering. Her beak was cracked, part of it missing and exposing burnt black flesh. One eye hanging from its socket. If I'd had a mouth in this void on memory, I would have thrown up. Instead, the memory kept going. You, the voice of the sergeant said, as the point of view turned away from the dead body, and I saw him. Von Pack, my old friend from basic training, looking worse for wear. He was covered in blood and missing one of the talons on his left clawfoot thing. He was being held down by a familiar, his wings spread out and pinned down by its paw and snout. I heard you have training with healing magic. That right? Yes, he said, clearly in pain. Good. Then heal yourself, the sergeant said, and the familiar released his wings, but kept his mouth close to Von Pack's head. Von Pack healed his claw, then the familiar quickly pinned his wings closed with his mouth. Ah! He cried out. My stomach dropped watching this. All I wanted to do was end the memory, but I needed to see what happened. Easy there. We don't want him dead. Yet. Say, that Nume over there called you Von Pack earlier. Are you a noble? What am I saying? You were a diplomat for the Kingdom of Amboss. An ambassador even. Of course you're a noble. I've never met a noble before, the sergeant said, and gave a fake mocking bow. Who are you? Did the... You know, I'd heard that Amboss was secretly supporting one side in the island's little power struggle. Guess that was true. Want to tell me which one Amboss had their sea sacks on? Von Pack stayed silent. Oh well, we'll get all the information we want later. The sergeant turned to face me, or rather his subordinate. You, go let the master know we found a healer, with plenty of secrets. Seconds later, the memory stretched and warped, then was overwritten with new distorted memories, all plain at once. Von Pack, I said, shocked. Jake, a voice said, echoing in my mind. A cold chill ran down my spine. For a moment I thought it was Dage's voice. Suddenly, all the warped memories faded away, leaving me in blank white space. Jake, the voice repeated. Datahu? I asked, looking around. No, it said. Deja? A lump formed in my non-existent, at the moment, throat. If my hands were visible, and I wasn't just a floating consciousness in a void, they would have been clammy. Thankfully not, the voice said, and the image of a big, burly man wearing chainmail, furs and leathers. On his hip were 2 axes, and a wooden shield hung from a strap over his shoulder. "Zachariah?" I asked, confused. "It's been a while, little Vikinger,"